Good evening, everyone. I'm really glad to see so many of you here, despite of the late hours and already dark outside. It is my pleasure to welcome you here. Unfortunately, our main organizer, Jakvilo, was not able to really greet you here himself, as he fell ill at the last minute. But believe it or not, this is the 8th year we're really holding the series of data science seminars. So 2 years more to go, and then we will have a little anniversary. But this time, we are focusing on sustainable development. From one hand, technology is definitely contributor to climate change, and we consume more and more. But today we also try to look at the different aspect of this and really see how data and technology can help us to reduce the impact that we have and really make the development sustainable. So I'm really glad to see you here, and let's make a huge applause for the organizers and also encourage our speakers, and Meelis will. So applause to our speakers, please. And I'll give word to Meelis.
Welcome from me as well. My name is Meelis Kull. I'm very happy to moderate the first session. So what are we looking at today are two sessions, where the first one is more about the nature, and the second one is more about the technology, but it's a mix. For example, in the first session, we'll ask about trees, forests, asking the paraphrased question, how many trees are there in the forest? We also have, importantly, a coffee break for networking. And so that is a chance for you to ask all those questions that you didn't ask here. But I hope you will ask here as well. And then even after the second session, please don't leave, because we will have drinks and snacks out there and time for exciting discussions. Let's get to the first session. So first, Aveliina Helm, a professor of Restoration Ecology, who is also a scientific advisor to the new Ministry of Climate. And so in that role, she's a perfect situation to tell us about the goals of the Estonian government, as well as also her own research. And join me in welcoming Aveliina Helm, please.
Thank you so much. Very glad to be here. Thank you. Thanks, Jaak, for inviting me here. And perhaps for many of you, this will be the first such kind of introduction into the climate and biodiversity problems that we are facing, and how can data science and help here, and what are the needs of data, looking from the perspective of a biologist, of an ecologist and conservation scientist who is in everyday life facing the issues that we do not have enough sufficient data. We do not have the ability to analyze and derive necessary information from that data. So as you know, we are in the process of two great challenges. One of them is is more well known, the challenge of climate change, but not at all less significant is the loss of biodiversity that is going on at the same time. With the loss of nature, with the degrading habitats, we are also losing the nature's capacity to mitigate climate change and provide all the necessary goods and services and living conditions that we actually need as humans. we are solely dependent on nature on that. 1 million plant and animal species out of 8 million species is in the threat of extinction within next few decades. Almost half of the frogs in the world are facing oblivion. But these are the patterns that we see across the world, across the Europe, that we are losing the species that are around us, and we are losing interactions between species. This is one study from Germany that caused a political shift in this country. This is a loss of flying insects from 1990s to nowadays, where they saw the loss of flying insect biomass of more than 75% over these 27 years, which is shocking, and it has its consequences to us as people and to nature as a whole. This is the sister of IPCC, which is the climate panel for biodiversity and nature. There is a similar panel, global panel called IPBES, and this IPBES is also writing reports similarly as IPCC for climate. And these reports are a kind of doomsday reading material. I would say these are, for example, biodiversity trends in habitats across Europe, the main habitats that we have. And the fact that you don't see green or many blue ones just is here to illustrate that in all regions and in all habitats, the situation is not so good. When coming to climate change and climate change mitigation, if we continue the degradation of habitats the same way we have been so far, we are also failing on climate change mitigation. And this is the one study that showed that even if we phase out fossil fuels in the necessary pace, if we continue the degradation of ecosystems, we are still failing to meet Paris climate target of 2 degrees, limiting the warming to 2 degrees, or limiting the warming even to 1.5 degrees, which is even harder. So we are overshooting when we are continuing to deal similarly with nature. Now closer to the data that I want to address, and the data needs and the necessity. So here is one scenario building of global biodiversity future. So similarly to climate models, we can model, it is even more complex, we can model biodiversity and its future scenarios depending on our actions of how we continue. And this is the scenario, the only scenario that kind of bends the extinction curve, is the one that really focuses on land use, that takes nature and biodiversity into every aspect of our life. If we don't do that, we fail, and we end up with what is one sad donkey at the end of the picture. This is an artistic illustration, yes. So whether we want it or not, if we are not going to fail on the targets that we have, we need to step up our mission in climate, addressing climate change, and also in halting and reversing biodiversity loss. Humanity has actually set already twice this target of halting biodiversity loss. First time it was set in 2000, global agreement called in kind of Convention of Biological Diversity, and all countries agreed that by 2010 we are halting biodiversity loss. Then the 2010 came, and everyone kind of discovered that nothing really had changed, and then the same target was repeated, and by 2020 we are going to stop biodiversity loss. In 2020, we again saw that this was not happening, and we failed on that. And now we have set a bit more ambitious target. Not only we need to stop the biodiversity loss, but we are in the situation where we need to restore what has already been lost and degraded. And this is highly necessary because not only we are losing the nature in its values, we are also failing on climate change, and there has been calculations on different scales saying that land-based restoration of habitats, the recovery of well-functioning habitats and biodiverse places everywhere around us has the potential to really reabsorb the carbon from the atmosphere, not in the magnitudes that would completely offset what we have put there, but it does help us a lot to gain a bit back that is just hanging in the atmosphere. And there are strong co-benefits for climate, biodiversity, and people and their well-being. So in all this, the land use planning and the information that we have on our land is really the key. And one really feasible target that we can have and what we should aim for is called shared landscapes vision, which says that in every square meter, in every hectare that we have in the world, we should consider whether this is what we are doing here, whether we can do it better, whether we can maybe address also some burning issue of carbon capture or biodiversity or supporting insects or pollinators or soil biodiversity here. Maybe we can do it jointly. And at least in 1/3 of the world, we should really leave nature functioning as it should be functioning. So in 1/3 we should have these nature conservation areas, and in most of the land, as much as we can, we should share. We can build, let's say, windmills for renewable energy, and at the same time create insect-rich habitats underneath it. Or we can carry out conventional forestry, but at the same time address small issues and targets for species and habitats. It is all possible and not at all impossible. So what it really needs, having this shared landscape, it needs, and I think there is correct time for that, we need really local and somewhat personalized tools that every one of us could use and have information on the land that we are using and that we are planning. We need to know what is happening there. So from these really general targets that I listed, that we need to hold biodiversity laws, we need to create more protected areas, we really need to go from these general targets to really local and personalized approaches, because every place, every square meter, every hectare has its own needs, history, conditions, and opportunities for this land sharing. So what kind of data and tools we are lacking, and what can we use, and what we have been using? So first, for what we actually need data. You might be surprised to know that there are actually not, while there are so many applications that we could use the data and good information about our surroundings for, we do lack the data on very basic things. For example, in Estonia, we don't even know how much, forest is being cut every year, or how much limestone is taken out of the quarries and from where. Or we, and if we go global, we know even less. We know very little about the nature, about the habitats, and so on. We start to know more and more, but still it is like shockingly little that we still know. But we do need the data for all those things listed here. First, we need to kind of step into the 21st century land use planning that would really take into account all the needs that we have, that we are not doing randomly, we are not planning randomly or based on whatever kind of feelings we have at the time, but we are planning everything as they do in Singapore, where they have planned every square meter for the next 20 years, like what is happening there. We need to do it literally globally somehow, and especially in the little places around us. So we need data for ecosystem restoration, how to improve, where are the degraded habitats, what are the necessities to do there, and so on. All these necessary kind of applications that we so urgently need for addressing those two key issues, habitat, biodiversity loss and climate change. So which kind of data we need? So as I told, we do not have too much informative land use data. What is happening on the ground? We know we do have satellites, I am aware of that, but we have yet only limited capacity to derive from the satellites what this signal actually means on the ground. And coming, as Meelis was introducing, I'm currently also working in the Ministry of Climate, and I'm surprised that we have so limited knowledge of our small and very digital country. We do not know what is happening on the ground, but we do need to know more than we do. Then what we need to know globally is the distribution of habitats, species, and their condition. These snapshots of loss, they really are those that need to be addressed thoroughly. And most importantly, we need kind of rapid and very kind of up-to-date information about the drivers that drive biodiversity loss and climate change. These drivers are known. They are not random set of things. They are well known what is driving biodiversity loss and what is driving climate change. We need to kind of monitor these drivers and have these flags up when these drivers go like boom. If something happens fast somewhere, we need to know that and we need to address that, because otherwise we are kind of losing track and losing time. But we also need to know what is getting better. So monitoring the conservation efforts, even the small things that people do in their surroundings, they can be monitored and should be monitored to kind of have the feedback of what is going better and how these actions are impacting the world. The remote sensing is a kind of like a promising tool, but it only works when there is a ground truthing data that can kind of combine the information. We already know a lot and we can build on it a lot, but I would say that this world is like a big discovery box of some kind, like people are overwhelmed with the information that is coming, and there is still necessity to make sense of it. Like it's not fully linked, all these aspects. So the things that come from remote sensing, they always need local monitoring and local information from the ground. This is a key, and we kind of have always, not always, but tend to forget it as well. But at the same time, there are many new tools and for getting the information from the ground, like environmental DNA applications where you can sample soil or plants or even air and get the information that you need. These need the capacities of data science people, the information that needs to be brought together and analyzed into a form that can be used to detect change or make some land use decisions or conservation decisions or planning decisions. So this is the procedure that needs to be developed. We are kind of slowly starting to put these indicators together. For example, this is the UN Biodiversity Lab that has built a kind of global data set of different indicators that would be relevant for kind of global approaches. Here is this green, sorry, this is red. This red one is above ground biomass carbon content globally derived from the satellite data, but it needs still a ground truthing and kind of like putting these holistic things together. And for every scale that we address, we have the different data needs and we have the necessity to combine the scales in a relevant way. We have done some cool, I would say, things in Estonia. Estonia is relatively data-rich country. I would say very data-rich, but still kind of like maybe the best even. Yes, that might be true. Yes, but we are still kind of like we still need more, as all the scientists say. It needs more studies. But this is the information that we have put together. For example, this is the nature's ability to provide habitats for species in Estonia. And the green one is how connected are the habitats for the species, how well they can move across the landscapes. And this is the information that can be put together and can inform also the decisions made in the planning, let's say. This is the soil organic carbon content in Estonian soils, and this is the price of soil organic content in those soils according to today's price. And there's one little tool we have put together where we have used almost all the relevant data that there is in Estonia. It involves more than 70 data layers combined together in relevant kind of informed way, it is called Green Meter, that you can access in your computer or phone. And this is a tool that helps you to kind of know how well the surrounding landscape around you supports biodiversity and other species. So we have, if you go there, you will find kind of place you can put the dot on, and then it calculates you the biodiversity support. Wow, biodiversity, so cool. Biodiversity support of these surroundings, and gives some recommendations. What can you do, or what should be done in this place? So how this works? Indeed, we have a lot of GIS layers that is combined together in an expert matrix way, and then it gives a kind of harmonized, standardized score from 0 to 100 that says that if it's 100, then you should be very happy. If it's 0, you should really move away from there or do something about it. So this is one tool that we have put together. And this is just the people clicking on Green Meter when it was launched. Every black dot is one click. And this is Estonian map. The greener areas have better support, and the red areas have a bit less support. Yep, and I think that's all I told so much. I want to invite you all to the conference if you are interested in nature. I think we will have a data science related sessions quite a lot in the conference focusing on ecological restoration next year in Tartu. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time for questions. Please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to come over to you so that we get this also recorded well.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. You said something that I found very interesting, that we need localized and personalized tools to be able to do something for every hectare, basically. Yeah. And when we look at these data science tools that you showed, usually they tend to go the other way around, right? They try to look at very big scales because they need big data to start to make inference that makes sense. So you need a lot of statistics. Can you give us an example of how these big scale tools are used in practice at the local scale? Do you have example of how localized tools have been developed based on this data you've been showing, green meter, for instance?
Exactly, the green meter is a localized tool in this sense that it does not just provide you a map that is of different scale or somehow made in a similar way for all the places, but the green meter works so that if you go into a particular place, then you have also the localized information layers for this place. So that and by localized I also mean that you have to take into account some of the variables that are not usually taken into account. For example, in ecology, when you look at the biodiversity and want to kind of improve its condition, it is very, very, very important to know what has been in this particular place before. So you might have the same thing right now, like maybe one kind of forest or degraded forest. But if you want to improve that condition, you need to know what was there before, and this is highly relevant because only then you can have the kind of the best outcome. So you need to go deep into history in temporal scales in one place, and then combine the information from different spatial scales, and then kind of get together in one village. And then if you would be especially good in that, you would also add local socioeconomic data and people and the kind of necessities and their abilities and the possibilities. So that would be the local, like personalized medicine.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation, and thank you for mentioning remote sensing also. Kaupo Voormansik, KappaZeta Estonian Earth Observation Company. Regarding we have a lack of data, I totally understand, but also we are not taking the maximum out of the Earth observation. We are far from this. Yeah. And I give one very clear example. What we could do is the water regime of the peat soils. From satellites, we could relatively directly measure it, whether they are saturated or they are dry. And we could directly measure it and have the spatio-temporal year by year, not exactly day by day, but week by week coverage. And from there, we could derive much more precisely how much CO2 Estonian landscapes actually emit or absorb. And this is a job what is like just waiting for initiative. And another thing is a little bit, if I can, like do a little terminology correction. You were talking about ground truth. I know people use it, but actually I don't like this term. And it's because there is no truth. Yeah. It's better to talk about ground reference. Yes. Of course, ground reference is very, very important. I understand what you mean, but there is no truth. It's just another measurement next to another measurement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fully agree on that. Yes. Thank you so much.
First of, thank you, and thank you, Kaupo, as well for the questions and specifications. I was just wondering, given that I guess around here we have quite a few kind of data people around, then the question is there any kind of open source initiatives planned? Is there any way how the kind of data community as such can contribute perhaps to the preservation of nature? Is there any civic activism possible anyhow?
Yes, there are some initiatives, but I'm not so certain that they are built in this way that you imagine. I recall one approach, but I would also now think that this would be something that can be done in Estonia from this initiative. Yes, because I don't recall like straight away something like that. Yeah, good plan.
I have a follow-up question on this. So, I mean, there are many students who would like to contribute in their studies already by doing data science for the benefit of the environment. So what are the best ways to do it, in your opinion? So, for example, maybe if they want to contribute locally, you said Estonia is particularly data rich.
Mm-hmm.
What are your suggestions of where to start? Some kind of open data sets? Is it mostly open data? And even harder can be finding the right questions to address with the help of these data, because you can see the open data, but coming up with the questions is also hard. So where to get the questions from?
I think this is the key question, and that was that the kind of interaction and asking those questions. I think there is a lot of room for what are those hackathons or kind of like mind mapping exercises that would put those skills together that people have. I think the time is very, very ripe for that. There is a lot of data, and as you said, that needs to be harnessed into in a right way. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.
So we're now continuing. Before I introduce the next speaker, let me also comment a bit briefly on the visualization that you can see. This is created by AI, stable diffusion, so with trees. And so the way this was obtained was that Stable Diffusion was asked to generate a line drawing with 3 trees, electricity network grid, and some pictograms of CO2 and so on. So it's an interesting kind of artificial tree that you also see on the left, created from that. But now I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, who is Kalev Pärna, Professor Emeritus in Statistics. He has led a project to assess the amount of trees and forests in Estonia. So he's perhaps the most knowledgeable person here on factual correctness of various estimations on this very politically hot topic. Thanks for coming. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting to participate in this seminar. Our institute has been active in forestry research, especially forestry statistics, for 5 years already. And we started with a small project in remote sensing in forestry statistics, and then we studied some loss, some error calculation methods. Currently, we are active in analyzing models used in forestry statistics. Apart from me, in this area, several colleagues are active, like Raul Kangro, Mert Mels, Imbi Traat, and some other people from our institute. Uncertainty, this is something inevitable in forestry statistics, because in forestry inventory, NFI, National Forestry Inventory, we have sample survey and small area data is generalized to a whole territory, to a whole country, and errors are always there. If somebody claims the total volume of the forests in Estonia is 450 million, then you don't take it for the truth. There is, in best case, the actual volume is quite close to this number, but statisticians are able to calculate something, to calculate limits where the true volume lives. And I try to explain the methods we use. First I explain what is NFI, National Forest Inventory. In Estonian it's SME, Statistiline Metsainventuur. So NFI is SME in Estonian. So then I explain the main statistical problems that we see in NFI, and one important concept is spatial correlations in NFI data, and some words about future development of NFI. So, what is forest? You may think you know what is forest, but definition is here on the left-hand side. So there must be some area, there must be some height, and canopy cover, 30%. This definition depends on the country, in fact. Important measurement is calipering, measuring of diameters of at breast height. I think you understand very well what is done here. So the measurement is done at the height of 1.3 meters. In National Forest Inventory, this is a main type of measurement that are really done. Also, heights of all the trees are measured, but in less extent. Forest land in Estonia makes up 53%. This number should be quite correct, perhaps something like plus minus 2% maximum, and half of the forest belongs to the state, another half to legal and private persons. And the total volume of forest should be around 440 million cubic meters. So what is NFI? National Forest Inventory is a sample survey with purpose of estimating the total volume and the area of forest in the country. In Estonia, it started in 1999 when a Swedish system of NFI was implemented. The reason was that the old forest register the quality of forest register dropped sharply after the country regained independence, and because private forests were not inventoried anymore. So far, so we have had 5 cycles of NFI, 5 years cycles. So you see the regular grid of tracts used in Estonian NFI. There are each point here, in fact, this is a combination of 16 plots. I show them later. Red and black points are permanent plots, tracts. They have always the same location, and blue dots are temporary. They are new every year. We have 3 measurement teams, only working 5 months every year, and each tract consists of 16 plots. You can see 16 plots here. Dark plots are volume plots. Here, trees are calipered, measured. Breast height diameter is measured. On white plots, it's not done. There are some other measurements I have done. Basically, they are assessments by eye. From a statistical point of view, NFI sampling design is a systematic cluster sampling. Cluster is tract here. This is a statistical term, and this systematic grid is more efficient than simple random sampling when we throw plots independently and randomly. The total area of sample plots is only 1 square kilometer, and it must be generalized to the whole area of Estonia. So, therefore, estimation errors are inevitable. A major problem, statistical problem, is how to calculate sampling error. If we shift the whole grid to a newer place, then all the numbers will be different, but we can somehow calculate what is a range of fluctuation, how much an estimator varies if the entire grid is shifted randomly. We first did some research about the optimality of the grid itself. Mostly can say it's rather optimal. Still, we can consider decreasing the radius of volume plots. Currently, volume plots have 10 meters radius, but we have analyzed the situation, and if instead of 10 meters to take only 7 meters, then it means there is too much less calipering, 2 times less work. And we have only 7% loss in precision. So it's something that should be considered, and in order to make the whole work less expensive. there are spatial correlations in NFI data. It means spatial correlations means that if we take two geographically close units like trees or plots, then they also have a tendency to have close values in terms of other characteristics like forest cover or volumes. And here varograms are important tools, and also correlation coefficients can be calculated here. This is a correlation matrix here. You can see green correlations are biggest, and they are big correlations are always between neighboring plots. The longer is distance, the smaller is correlation between plots. So there is spatial correlation, but if we these spatial correlations mainly comes from between tract variability. If we exclude between tract variability, then the residual correlation is only 0.05 or something like that. So it means that within one tract, the plots can be regarded as independent observations, more or less, roughly speaking. And this varogram tells the same. At 400 meters, we have the average squared distance has reached almost the maximum already, so there is no need to go to make the distances between plots longer. Independence is almost more or less there already. Now, in this setting, when we have systematic cluster sampling, we have two principles to take into account. First one is in systematic cluster sampling, observations are tracts, not plots. So the number of observations is number of tracts, not the number of plots, so 16 times less. And all the plots data must be aggregated to the tracts level first, and then all the rest of statistics should be done on basis of on the level of tracts. And the second principle is that spatial correlations should be taken into account. The tracts are not independent. The closed tracts have close values in volumes in forest area also. But here, often simplifications are used. In some countries, no one of these two principles is used. It takes to serious underestimation of the errors. In many countries, only one first principle is used, and this takes to inflated error estimates. It's overestimation of errors. So optimum is to use both of these two principles. And so here is how the error calculation should be done. I will not go into all details here. here M means average volume per hectare. It's sum of volumes, tracked volumes divided by sum of tracked areas. And now we want to estimate sampling error. The only thing I want to show here on this slide is very last scheme here. You see there are 4 tracts here placed as a square, like in the nature, and the average of 2 diagonal tracts. We have average of this diagonal that estimates this point, and average of the other 2 tracts is also estimate of this same point, and the difference of these 2 estimates is G here, it's written here, and all statistics is based on these differences. We have used this methodology. First, we validated it, and in using 2 methods, and in both cases we have found that method work rather well. The same method is used for a long time in Finland already, so we can say we have taken this error calculation to the level of Nordic countries. And now about the application of this methodology, when estimating forest cover, it's 53.4, and sorry. Here it's a percentage, and we have calculated relative sampling error, like 2.6. The current methodology, previous methodology, underestimated the error. The similar application was done in estimation of average volume. Here we reached relative error 2.4%, and estimating the total volume of forest in Estonia. So simple calculations, area times average per hectare results in 484 million, plus minus 3.5%, where 3.5 is calculated from 2 previous errors on 2 previous slides. So to finish, the new error calculation method somewhat overestimates error, but some conservatism is better than over-optimism when it comes to error estimation. And we have also experience in using remote sensing data, and we are sure that the future of NFI is more extensive use of remote sensing data. We have seen in our calculations, our analysis have shown that using even ALS data, airborne laser scanning data, reduced the error by 20-30% already. So this is that we have to study in the future. Thank you very much.
Please, first question we have there.
Thank you very much for that. I was just wondering that I'm not sure if I saw in this kind of error estimation any temporal aspect to it, meaning that I guess we could kind of improve the estimations also by using like time series analysis over the years.
As I understand, yes, here we have time series data. That's true. Yes, but this time series data is rather complicated. There are cuts, clear cuttings every year, and this is not a natural process. This is human. These numbers, cutting numbers, are caused by human, and so this time series analysis is not so trivial, and I don't think it helps in error calculation. Perhaps it helps in some other aspects. But in error calculations, there are several other factors of uncertainty. For example, models. If we use models, then there are model errors. Second, in Estonia, we only have 3 measurement teams, and there is a danger of subjectivity in measurements. So there are some problems because, for example, age of a tree is estimated in many cases mainly by eye, and systematic errors can occur quite easily here. So one team has some make some underestimation of ages, for example. So there are additional problems how to analyze, how to quantify uncertainty. So
one clarifying question. So other boundaries of forests that are present on the maps, something that is used in the process or not at all?
Currently, you mean
in your methodology that you use?
Sensing.
Yeah, remote sensing or other ways of knowing where the current boundaries are between the field and the forests?
There are several projects on this topic, but these remote sensing methods are not systematically used at the moment. It's coming within some years, I hope.
Thanks very much. And now we have Kristjan Lepik, who is from the company Arbonics. He's the CEO and co-founder there. And So on their website, they write that we work to ensure that all the benefits forests bring are appreciated, from timber to carbon sequestration and biodiversity. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Kristjan. I'm one of the co-founders of Arbonics, and I thought about what I will tell you today, and we actually built a pretty cool data system to measure part of the nature together with Tartu University. I even see Tauri in the audience who was part of that team. But I will not demo that too much. I decided to share with you the business story instead, because I think it helps you to understand how a company which we formed is building data systems and what are the troubles around that company which they need to face to get the investment to make to the data. So I think that might be helpful for you to get it. So I will tell you 4 points of time, about 4 points of time, and the first one being around 2 years ago when there was no Arbonics. It was just an idea, but why we decided to build it. And this actually relates to the Aveliina's chart. On the left, you can see how the emissions need to get to zero, which is, we see those estimates all the time, and they are like wildly optimistic to me. Like somehow the emissions start to drop soon, but like nobody knows exactly how. And the other thing on the right is that actually forests, if we need to get, we have, well, like humankind pollutes around 53 gigatons of CO2 equivalent per year. We need to get to zero. So forests actually could do around 10 of that. So that's a lot. Renewable energy is another big pillar that could do another 10, but other ones are much smaller. So we need to do a lot of things to get to net zero, but nature is actually one of the biggest tools for that, and we are not using it, or we are using it wrong. So the idea was that I think that based on data and being very proven, a company can support nature more. And that's what we intended to do. So that's the kind of first point of time. We decided to, first we spent a year of researching what we want to do. And in the beginning of last year, we decided to start building. The problem is, like we saw from the first presentations, measuring nature is hard. But it's almost always possible, just I think the resource allocated to it hasn't been enough. So how do we solve that? As a company, you have limited resources. I did some back-of-the-napkin calculations to build everything we want to do with forests in Europe. The cost of that would be around 100 million euros. Sadly, nobody's giving me that. But if you build it step by step, we could make it. So that's the logic. And we need to measure the first step, what we do, very well. We got our first 2 million investment, and we decided to start with afforestation, which is planting a new forest. If a landowner decides to do that, we get money from them, from companies who decide to support nature. So there is a new market being formed. Companies want to offset their footprint and support nature. Landowners could be doing good, but there is no bridge between them. So we are building that bridge, because both sides exist, and this is what kind of makes me super excited about it, and that's why we're building it. But the bridge there, it doesn't exist, and the bridge is actually super complex. So it's not easy to build it, because you need to prove also scientifically what you do. So that's why we also started working together with Tartu University. My grandfather was a scientist in the same university here, so I've been, as a small kid, running around in different university buildings, so maybe that's the background. But we, and there has been a lot of talk, so that's the second point of time. We got our investment, wasn't easy to get it, but we did, and then we decided to start building. Even before going live, we decided to invest heavily into the data. Very risky bet, because you don't even know whether it works, if anybody even wants that from the landowner side. But we knew that we cannot do it without data, so we built a solution to to answer landowner where exactly they could plant a new forest and how much carbon over time it will sequester. So building those models wasn't easy, right, Tavi? No, but we did it. So we launched in last September, and that's maybe the second point of time, or like other part of the market. And this is now the carbon credit market, which has been growing like so much over the last 7 years, but it's expected to grow even more. Today's market, I think, is too small for us to build what we do, but we are investing into the future, and if we are wrong, the market doesn't come, our business won't work. But it will. So I'm very sure it will, because we need to support nature. And there isn't like a proper path for it. I see how fast many companies, mostly sadly in Western Europe, less in Estonia, want to do something for it, but they don't have proper tools. So the tools are there, but they are sometimes quite questionable quality. And there is like greenwashing actually really isn't just a word, it's out there. There are many projects which doesn't do anything good for the planet. So what we build, maybe that's for another time where to demo that in more detail. But what we did, there was a question about, there is like this general level of data, and we need to get super precise, because we decided that the landowner comes to us, we need to tell them exactly where they could plant the trees, which tree type should they use based on soil information. That's a data layer that's again super hard to get. And Aveliina's very right, we are now live in Finland, Latvia, and Lithuania as well. And the soil data quality, for example, is like just way worse there. So Estonia is really good with data, but everywhere else we go, we need to sometimes start inventing that. So going on the ground is very tough. Soil data is something that everywhere is just being like developed. But it's very interesting because almost as much as carbon can be stored underground, so you need to understand that. And if you do clear cutting of a forest, then the carbon will go back to the atmosphere from the soil as well, not only to trees. So this is something where we need to get super precise with the models, and that's why the Tartu University team built, as you can see on the second slide, there is like tiny hexagons, 7 by 7 meter hexagons. So that's our unit of measurement. We are so precise. So not all the data layers are with that precision, but some are. So every hexagon tells a different story, and we have been able to go out to landowners, take this software. We didn't even know if they want it, but over the last year, we done almost 10,000 of those calculations for landowners for different parcels. So they want it, they love it. The data makes them very clear for them what it is. And it's like a beautiful example how I think that something that I maybe learned having built different data companies before, or companies that have been focusing also on data, is that actually nobody cares about data, but what you can take as insights from the data, that is crucial. So if you go to somebody end user or a customer, you need to think about what is an insight from the data that might be intriguing to them. We thought that landowners would like to know where they could plant and how much they could earn, 2 things, and that was like, right. So those 2 things mattered to them a lot. So the second slide is already giving, based on the soil information, the estimates for carbon and tree types, which is also cool. So you can see that even this area, which isn't huge, has very different soil information, so you should plant different tree types, generating a biodiverse forest, not a monoculture. So you need to start bringing biodiversity into this as well. So I think that landowners like the data, maybe also in the Nordics, people know more about data, but landowners also tend to be on the older side. So they are not this kind of young tech-savvy people, but they get the data platform because the solution was also, I think, UI-wise well designed. But now the third point of time, this year has been very troublesome in the global media for nature-based solutions. Read the headline, this one. I think this one was from The Guardian, that majority of carbon offset projects are globally likely junk. Next one. More than 90% of rainforest carbon offsets are worthless. Those numbers were overblown. We went deep and checked. So maybe their number shouldn't be 90, it's 40. But 40 is pretty horrible as well. If you're a company who wants to buy something from this market, you're probably stopping that. So we saw that this is clearly happening. Companies are a bit more worried, a bit more risk averse. But our first project afforestation is also with our data solution, combining with an American verifier Vera, is almost greenwashing proof, because you're planting a new forest and then getting credits only if the trees have grown. So we, in a way, went with a new market, we went to the less risky area, but now we want to start building the product, which I think data-wise is 7 or maybe 10 times more complex than the first one. We want to now go to the second part of the market, say, this is an existing forest. Landowner, please don't cut it down. We will get you money from a company who wants to do good for the nature. Now, the tough part about this market is that we need to get the landowner to agree to sign a 30-year contract. So that's a very long contract for the new market, because if they promise, I won't cut it down for 3 years and then cut it in the 4th, like, it's worthless, right? So that's one thing. But if you think about the 30-year period, and instead there is a new term around the forestry, which is pretty exciting, but even scientists are not fully agreed how and on which latitude does it work properly. The term is continuous cover forestry, and it means, like, instead of cutting like forest fully down, you do smart cutting, maybe in patches. There is a Swedish company called Air Forestry. It's taking trees out of forest on a drone. The drone can already carry a 200-kilogram tree out of forest. You don't damage everything around it, but you can take a small trees out. So it's getting pretty exciting on many fronts. I see a lot of good companies being formed and started and doing things. But you need to structure it right. So, for example, one tree type, for example, if you cut, let's say, a patch of a forest down, maybe it's only like 100 square, let's say 500 square meters, and plant spruce there, it probably can grow. But if you plant pine, it does need more light. Maybe it doesn't even grow. So you need to get super complex and smart, considering the light angles, the soil type, tree types, latitudes, everything. So that data models get complicated. And that's why we didn't start with the second product before we kind of have proper funding. And next year we plan to increase our data investment 5 times compared to the previous one. So this requires proper resources to build, but we need to include their ecosystem scientists, soil scientists, forestry scientists, data science, GIS. So it gets almost, to me, like into a deep tech, because it combines so many different sources. So, but that's, I think, the effort with what we can get to a high quality product, and that's how we need to measure everything around nature. We're doing only forests. There needs to be the same solutions for even like how do you, I know that Aveliina has kind of thought a lot about the grasslands and different value they provide. How do we measure everything around that properly? Like, you need to get very detailed and granular to do it well. So that's the interesting part. Now the tough part is that I think during this year I've spoken to around maybe 100 venture capitalists around the world to discuss these investments for sure into us, but to see, during that I saw their mindset as well. And I've spoken to many of them in 2021 when market was booming, everybody was happy, money was flying, you had to hide from the money and stuff like that. It's a bit different now. It's actually the complete opposite. Raising money is right now very hard, and I even could see from them that they are scared. Like venture capitalists are this kind of gung-ho type of cool guys. They're never scared. But if you know them, even if they don't tell it, you see they're scared. So the market is getting tougher on them. And if you look at the numbers, actually this is just the latest data from Q3. You can see that the total investments globally into venture financing have fallen almost to the 2018 levels. So a very sharp drop-off, and I think it's continuing to drop more. Why I'm speaking about this is that if you put the two things together, the criticism around nature projects and this, you get an environment where nature kind of based solutions are getting very few investments this year, probably next as well. So sadly, I think that as an area where the world needs to invest from the private sector, probably less stuff is happening. So that sucks, to be honest, and I think that's stupid as well. But that's the market's part, like they fluctuate up and down. So that worries me a bit. Not about us, we're good, but about everything that's around us. Like we need a lot of investments into the data and to be able to create projects in very different areas, like even Rohemeter is like great, I think. So we need many of these kind of things to measure everything properly. And if you as a data scientist think like, what's a cool area to go to? I think that's it. So I think there is so much cool things will be happening there. So we need to measure nature, support, kind of save our planet even. And we're not doing it now. But I think that in a few years there will be like many more companies around it. And I think it's a very interesting space. So just lastly, this is like the landowners we signed and the blue ones we visited as well. So we covered like most of Estonia already, but that is just the start. We're just getting started. So it's cool to see that the Estonian landowners actually say that their first thought is like, what is this weird new thing? But if you explain it to them well, why this is valuable for the planet, how you are doing good if you do act in a certain way, they're willing to come with you. So it's about storytelling, I guess, as well. So that's it from me. I think that this was like a very brief overview about what we kind of do, and I think this is an exciting space. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristjan. Questions, please. Many.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You mentioned a few times investment into data. Can you elaborate a bit more what you do? Do you like collect the data yourself? Do you buy it? Do you, I don't know, use satellites? You order some projects? What do you do?
In a way, that's an area where we're also getting started because we have a data system that has like for every of those 7 by 7 meter hexagons, we go 30 data layers deep. So to be able to answer everything that's needed around the new project that we do, if you go to the second product, which would be around existing forestry, that probably needs to be 100 data layers. Above the ground, below the ground, satellite imagery is also moving very fast. You're even able to, I think there will be some sessions afterwards speaking about how to measure based on the remote sensing. This is very exciting space. I think it will evolve a lot over the next 5 years. But we even are able to tell the health of a tree from the satellite imagery by now. So if you can turn that into a data, start measuring, create like a different steps of data over time, it becomes like a data set already for a same existing plot. It gets very exciting because you can also then use like machine learning to learn on the real-time data and kind of how your estimates are compared to that. So adjusting the model on the go in a way. So yeah, as you can see, this gets very interesting.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that the voluntary carbon market is a tricky place. And if I got that correctly, you also mentioned that you're certified by Verra, which I understand is the biggest certifier there is. So in their certification, you have to tackle things like additionality, permanence, and so on. And I understand from your current method that you tackle additionality by saying, okay, we just plant new trees. So in that sense, that's additional. Can you tell us a bit more how you tackle permanence in that case? And if you are to move to the new phase where you get the tree uncut, how do you plan to tackle additionality there?
Very good question. For example, our data model also takes into account whether there was a forest over the last 10 years or not. If there was, you are required by the law to plant a new forest. So that doesn't fit because the additionality is missing, right? You must do it anyway. So that's how we need to integrate the business logic and the data set to combine those two, right? That's one example only. Also, we take into account the Verra regulations. For example, organic soils for Verra doesn't fit. So we are working on them to change the methodology, which is messy, but maybe could be done. But right now, we also had to get into the soil, understand where the organic soils are, and tell those landowners your area doesn't fit now. So, and permanence, we are requiring the landowner to sign a 30 or 40-year contract. So they cannot, if they come to us, get the carbon revenue, they cannot cut it down over the 40 years. So if you're selling a new market, the contract length is a tough thing. But otherwise, if it again would be a 5-year contract, like the permanence would be like very questionable. And
it does apply to the current method.
Yes, yes. And also, that's why we started in Europe. We cannot guarantee permanence in Kenya, I think, right now. I cannot, at least. But in Europe, like in Estonia, if you plant a new forest, and then in 40 years you cut it down, you decide to do that, you are required to plant a new one. So the permanence in terms of that being forest is there. But hopefully we can sell them the other solution then, and they don't cut it down ever. So, but that's another thing.
Thank you. I think it's fair to disclaim that I'm also a small customer of Arbonics on my plot.
Thank you.
But actually, my question is about the global land use. So we know that in about 50 or 60 years, the world's population will grow by around 25 or 30%, and such there will be additional pressure on land use for agriculture. So are you sure that actually afforestation or actually planting new forests on plots which possibly could be used for agriculture later, is there conflict there? So this is, have you predicted or tried to estimate this as well?
Yes, I think that's a very good point. And since we are building this with a long-term view, for example, we added a data layer that our geoinformatics team, I think, also discussed with Aveliina about. It's in a way we made our business tougher because there are some grasslands and areas that are really biodiversity rich, and we said that we don't take those areas in, although we didn't have any regulation stopping us. We just think it's a bad thing to do on that certain area of land because you need to keep the biodiversity there. If you kind of put the forest there, you will mess it up. So that's one example. And with agriculture, we tell to the farmers, like, if it's a low bonity or low quality soil for farming, turn that into the forest. If it's a high quality, don't, right? So I think as a humankind, we're just being very non-intelligent with every hectare of land, how we use it. So we need to kind of get every hectare better, like data-based decisions making into that. So I think that's how it should work. And like, I think that agriculture needs to get better and forests as well. And we don't want to take areas that should be there for forest, like agriculture and a good high quality into forests. But I also think that that's a like very different topic, but I think that humanity needs to better also manage what they eat, and like if it's, for example, beef, that's very kind of puts a big toll on the nature to produce, then that should be eaten less. So I think that humanity will get there, but that leaves like more hectares for other stuff.
Thank you. Another possible issue. The question is that we know that there's climate change. We know that there is desertification, for example, and if you're kind of talking about kind of, I don't know, kind of, for example, planting 30 years ahead, then the question is that like, have you also started kind of taking into consideration not just urbanization risks, but also the risks that, well, in 30 years it might be just a desert and your spruce actually does not grow there?
A very good question, I think, because if you look at where we started in Europe, that's Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, that's quite in the north. And I think we don't ever go to southern Spain, just for the same reason, because even landowners, although they are sometimes not that sold on the climate change logic, but they tell us, and then I ask them, like, but are the forests growing differently than they did in 20 years ago? They say, yeah, they're faster. So forests that were in Latvia 20 years ago are now in Estonia. So everything is moving north. So we have to account into our models the possible climate change as well, and that's where the statistics come in. We need to probably, nobody knows what there will be there in 2040. We probably just need to have the most reasonable estimation and the range where it could be. So, but yeah, I think that if you look at the news this year, and this is only getting worse, I think, so the climate change is in the room.
Thank you very much.
On a very positive note, we end.
Thank you to all the speakers, to all the great questions. We now have a coffee break of 15 minutes, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 15 minutes here with more exciting talks.
Okay, it seems we are ready to start. Hi, I'm Tauri Tampuu. I'm a lecturer here. I'm replacing Meelis as a moderator for the second part. So the second part, as advertised, will be more about technology. And as the first speaker, I have the pleasure to introduce my brother, Tauri Tampuu, who is presenting his work done in collaboration with KappaZeta. So my brother has been studying the Estonian nature scientifically for more than a decade. Before his PhD, he used to go into the wetlands by car, driving for hours, carrying heavy equipment. So it's only normal that by his PhD, he realized that remote sensing is more reasonable way of measuring the nature. And now he's applying all this knowledge about using the Sentinel radar data in collaboration with KappaZeta, and he will tell you more about this. The floor is yours.
Hello, yeah, good. Hello once more. My presentation will be rather visual, because I try to convince you that the radar is something very beautiful and useful. And so there will be a bit technical stuff as well, and then a little bit of advertising on KappaZeta. But so let's go into those nice, colorful imagery. So very little about my background, which you already heard from my brother. So that is the title of my PhD thesis last year. So in this more understandable wording, it would be that I was studying how to monitor peatlands with satellite radar. And at the moment, I'm still in the process of moving from academia to private sector. And this private sector, that is this company KappaZeta. And what is KappaZeta doing is they are providing services based on radar and also optical satellite imagery. And Estonian people usually know KappaZeta because this company started as a spin-off from the observatory of that time Tõravere, now it's observatory of Tartu. And then how KappaZeta started was that they started providing grassland mowing detection based on radar. The Estonian, this PRIA, this agricultural registers and information board. And what connects me to KappaZeta is that we both work with radar, and we love radar. And so that's why we want to do everything together. And why radar? Okay, I'm too loud, I think, now. Am I too loud? Okay, good. Some echo. So why radar? Of course, because that's here, it's optical imagery over Estonia, and that's very typical what you get with optical imagery over Estonia. But radar, first of all, can see through clouds. So, but that's not the only wonder about that technology. So it's because it sends out a signal and then measures what comes back. So it's independent of night and day, independent of solar. And then what more? So radar sees into the vegetation, so sometimes sees through, sometimes goes in, so it gives that it can see under the vegetation, or it is sensitive to the volume of the vegetation. And also it's, because it's this radar is, okay, we'll go there. Let's just at the moment stick to that. It's sensitive to moisture, and also it is able to directly measure the surface height changes. So those are the wonders listed of radar. And now a bit more, what is the radar? And radar operates in microwave frequency, and that is the Sentinel, what my brother mentioned, Sentinel-1, namely, that is the radar which does most of the work nowadays for all of the world, and that has the wavelength of roughly 6 centimeters. And here you have some characteristics. So important is maybe it's roughly 5 to 20 meters of resolution, and it comes back very often. So, and it covers all the globe, including Estonia. So we have it really produces a lot of data. That's the beauty of it. And now let's go to what is the radar measures. And of course, the easiest thing is the backscatter. They call it backscatter. It's basically like the reflection what comes back from the target. And that's easy to understand. And then another thing, it's the phase, because really what is sent out is the wave, polarized wave. And in such a way, it's possible to measure in which phase this wave comes back to the sensor. And so that's why it's you send out vertically, and then you receive when it comes back vertically, and in which phase it comes. Or you send vertically, and then it comes back horizontally, and then you measure in which phase of the waves, phase of the wave it comes back. But it becomes even more interesting, because when you compare two images, and then you can start comparing the phases, the difference of, between the phases. And there you can start seeing those interesting things. When you put those two images together and you get this phase difference, a core product of this processing is called coherence. And this coherence, so I just read out because that's maybe the easiest way how to understand what's coherence, but basically coherence describes how the phase, or the stability of the phase, like local stability of the phase through the time. And basically it gives you the information how well the phase preserves from one image to another. And how you check this thing is like you compare the local neighborhood, and if the pattern of the neighborhood is similar in the next image. And okay, now we got this difficult part is finished now, so I hope you kind of understood. Now we can see some imagery, and that's much more intuitive and easy. And so it's rather ugly. It's just black and white, and that's the backscatter image. And obviously, then why black and white? Because it's just the intensity of what comes back. And white means you get a lot of signal. It's like black and white imagery back in times when they didn't have the colorful photographs. White is what's intense, and black is where the signal is weak. And here in this very image, that is actually from Crimea. And this strange pattern there, which doesn't look natural at all, it is actually not natural at all. It is the radar which the Russians brought there. I don't know what this radar exactly was doing, but it was some powerful and important radar. And so this radar was visible like that in the Sentinel-1 imagery. Everybody could see and check where it is. And so that kind of wonderful stuff, we can do with this freely available data. And here, that's another backscatter image. And here, all these nice colors. The radar doesn't have colors. So that trick is how you get these beautiful colors is that you have the same image, but because you have those different polarizations, and then you can combine those polarizations. And then doing like this RGB image, like 3 channels, red, green, and blue, putting a bit different inputs there, you get those colors which represent the different elements or characteristics of the target. And here into this image, it's around Tartu. Maybe you already recognized, somebody from Department of Geography maybe recognized. And so that is town of Tartu, or city of Tartu, however you should call it. And here, that is the riverbed of Emajõgi, and this black or dark there shows that it was flooded when this image was taken, so that dark thing is the flood in the riverbed. And here you can see those are natural bogs. Those are peat extraction areas, for example. And here, abandoned peat extraction areas, so which the color is different compared to those which are actively in use. So all that kind of things, they come out with this backscatter in one image. We'll show you one more example of backscatter imagery. So that is before the invasion to Ukraine. So that is Google imagery, and so you can see there, it's a bit difficult for you from a distance, but there's this gathering of the Russian troops. And in the Sentinel-1 image, it was visible like that. And then, like a few weeks later, the troops left, and you can see in this radar image as well that there's nothing there anymore left. Yeah, sorry. Okay, how can I go back? Oh, like that, my bad. Okay, so here one more image, and that's now like how you can do a bit of processing. So the background is just optical imagery, and the blue thing is the mask of flooding after the Kakhovka Dam was breached. And those are reed beds along the river, so all this blue, comparing now 2 different images from 2 different dates, and you get such a mask that all the blue area is the flooded area. And it's interesting here to see how the flooding is going up this other river, this Inhulet River, and even in this Inhul River, there are also some small blue dots in the corner of the image as well. There. And there was the bay, and even the water level in the bay was raised by this dam breach, so that this river not connected to this, not connected to the river where the dam was, but just through the bay. Even that river was, the water level was pushed up as far as up there, and so such nice things you can actually see and detect with the radar. And that was about backscatter, so coming shortly to the phase as well. And so this upper image, that's the phase image. And the lower image is the coherence image, the phase stability image. And as you can see, this coherence image is actually a bit easier to maybe understand what's there. So putting those 2 images together, maybe you understand. Okay, I can tell. So that is water and land. So that is the sea, and that's the land area. And here you can see the rivers, the black lines, and the white lines. In the coherence is the same, that white means it has been similar, this area between two acquisitions, and black means it's different. And obviously the sea is different because it changes every second, but there 2 weeks are the gap between those 2 images. And in those 2 weeks, as you can see here, that area hasn't changed. And the upper image, the phase image, all this nice and colorful, that represents the phase cycle. And here, these different elements of the landscape come out. Probably it's due to the different humidity conditions in those landscapes. But now I continue with this coherence image and show you one interesting stuff, what you can do with coherence, this change detection. And this lower corner, that's a little island there, and that island is this island. So it seems you all recognized, just in case if somebody is slow to recognize the Snake Island. And there was this story that first days of the war, the Ukrainians said, okay, this, the island was shelled, everybody were killed, and they're heroes. And then the Russians said, no, there's no shelling, no fight, nothing, and they just gave up. And so what actually happened there? And this radar actually can tell us what happened there. So that is the image, a coherence image between two acquisitions just before the war. So here in this image, war hasn't started, and then there have been two images and taken and compared to each other. And obviously, because it's a deserted island, nothing really happens there. So you can see this light color. Now just I made it more colorful for you. So instead of black and white, now it's blue and yellow. But the idea is the same. Yellow is similarity, blue is no similarity. And you can see the island is very coherent, and it has to be coherent. Buildings are stable, and desert island is stable. And now we take another image, which is just after the war. So one image was before the beginning of the war, and the other image after the beginning of the war. And in this time gap, there had happened the shelling. So the first image shouldn't be similar to another image if something happened there. And we can see here really like how those three areas here, where the buildings are also located, so we can see how coherence has been lost. So definitely there was shelling. So it was not that they just surrendered. So there was a fight. And that was at the moment all about the imagery, and now a little bit of this, what KappaZeta is doing and how you can use not those imagery, but in general imagery as the satellite imagery. And the main way how KappaZeta has been doing is the same example from this detection of grass mowing. And how that happens is that you take this different satellite imagery, optical and radar, coherence, backscatter, and then you have the polygon layer of all different grasslands, and then you feed those into machine learning model, and then here you have this different time series that come like describing what happens on that particular field, and then that is the probability curve. So the model finds the event what you're looking for. And here, maybe you can see from that distance, there's this little tractor which shows that the model found that that field was mown at that moment. And then one more thing that's like futuristic and the perspective to the future. So, because KappaZeta has been using the data so far, but now there's a great idea to have some more satellites in the space accompanying that Sentinel-1 to be able to do even more wonderful stuff with the data. And adding those companions, the plan is 3 of them to put there, so that would make this radar data 3-dimensional. And of course, all the applications now, what are here nowadays, they would benefit from one more dimension in data. And what makes it so beautiful that all this concept is that because then it's possible to put together this global coverage and all those good benefits of Sentinel-1, this repetitiveness and huge coverage, with then this 3-dimensional opportunity, plus it would be so cheap compared to this normal ways of the satellites have been made. And so it seems maybe a lot to you, but these normal satellites, they are like a few hundred millions, so that would be just a couple of tens of millions. And here one little showcase of what this 3-dimensional data could could do for us. Sorry. Okay, and yeah. So getting this three-dimensional, you can measure directly the volume or the vegetation, for example, and that comes into this, the previous speaker was talking about this carbon and biomass. And that would be global and affordable. And I finish here with that slide. KappaZeta is hiring at the moment, so if you know somebody who would like to apply for, then please. Thank you.
Yes, you can hear me. Good. Thank you. You were actually ahead of time, I think, so we can take more questions. Do we have questions from the audience?
Thank you for your good show. Sorry for my stupidity in advance, but you were showing, do you have any interpretation for Sentinel-1 imagery when it was vertically sent but horizontally received? What is the interpretation of when it changes the phase angle?
Why it's instead, okay, because it goes into the target, so it goes into the vegetation or something which is moist, and then what comes back, somehow they're inside, something changes, so it also sends back different polarization. And that's how it is done, and that's why this, especially this so-called cross-polarization, so you send out one way and then measure what comes the other way, that is usually indicates vegetation, for example. So it's basically possible to have like a radar vegetation index. And some other surfaces, it goes that way, but nothing comes back that way. So it's, and so that gives information about the target. And that's why I was able to get those different colors into this one image.
But then there are 4 channels. How can you make 4 colors?
Just the problem with Sentinel one is that it is only this vertical and vertical horizontal, and so that's why we have actually 2 colors. So if you put them together, like adding them up or dividing them, then you get the 3rd color. That's one question. Okay, there as well. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I have actually 2 questions. One very simple one. Why is it interesting to know about mowing in on the land? And the second one, you didn't show any segmentation application on Sentinel-1. Is it something that you're doing at KappaZeta, trying to identify different area and trying to put labels on them?
Sorry, repeat please about the application.
About segmentation, so using that data to try to identify different zones in the data and be able to say, okay, that's actually is forest, that actually is a peatland, that is housing in an automated way.
Okay, got it. I think I got it. So there's just a bit more complicated to segment all the stuff. So the easiest way is just to have polygons. That's what I showed, because then you know, kind of you're looking for signal in this particular place, and then you get, but otherwise, of course, and that's why this radar has been used a lot for this land cover classification. But then, of course, you can also do with optical, and why should you do with that with radar? So in some cases, it might help, especially if you need something which is very timely, because a lot of this, like after some catastrophes and those mapping is always done with radar, because usually like if something happens, a big flooding or volcano eruption, then you have no optical imagery, and then the satellite radar is the only thing that comes there and actually sees, or you have to send drones, and there it comes handy, because then you get even through the clouds and things. But then usually probably people are checking by the eye, because that's more reliable. But otherwise, that could be like this segmenting and looking for something that it's possible. But KappaZeta hasn't been doing that at the moment. Thank you.
More questions? You can continue, yeah.
You said like no cloud problem with SAR images. What about snow? Is it impactful?
Actually, it's kind of tricky because often some things it's a problem and then the opportunity at the same time. So the snow, you can't see through the snow. You might see if it's dry because this microwave is sensitive to water. If it's dry and not that much, you can see through the snow. But if it's wet, then you can't see. And in such a way, actually, what radar is used a lot is for ice monitoring, because it sees where the ice is, because it's not that easy to see with optical, because it might be transparent and you can't see, but the radar sees. And then the radar also is sensitive to the structure of the ice. So you could get all those different ways how this ice is backscattering, thanks to the ability to go inside the ice.
How deep inside? How deep inside? Can you monitor like the ice roads for the Estonian road administration? Okay, the ice is starting to crack or something?
Okay, you can see ice cracks there, but I can't answer that question because I haven't been working with ice. But they tried actually to measure the ice thickness. The University of Technology in Tallinn. But the results were not that good. But they have been trying to do it.
Okay, thank you. We must move on to the next presentation, which is the next presenter here. Is the next presenter here? Okay, very good. The next presenter will connect the computer. The next presenter is Arko Kesküla from STACC. We were supposed to have two presenters, but unfortunately Kirill fell ill and cannot join us today. While we are setting up the presentation, first of all, I think all of you know what STACC is. STACC is as a major player in the Estonian AI field, data-driven solutions. And it's also very tightly connected to the University of Tartu. So also both of the presenters, one who cannot be here, are actually alumni of University of Tartu. So I have to say Arko is coming from a very different field, has done the master thesis in Department of Chemistry and Material Science. But it's, we know, mathematics is all the same. Kirill was the alumni of our institute. I actually happened to be in the defense committee when he defended. So we recognized the name immediately. But today they're going to tell us about how we consume electricity and how it will look like in the future, I think. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me? So hello, my name is Arko, and I'm a data scientist in STACC. As mentioned, STACC is a machine learning and data science company, and as the logo or our phrase is, we turn data into value. And today, we were supposed to be two of us, Kirill and me. Kirill has the same faith as Jaak Vilo, so he's sick, unfortunately. A little bit of my background. Before I went into data science, I was working in academia for quite some time. After that, I went to Statistics Estonia, and I was a data scientist for 5 years. I did some big data infrastructure administration, and also worked a lot with Estonia's electricity data, finding different patterns and et cetera. And today's topic is personalized electricity systems, and Estonia's electricity market has been quite crazy the couple of last years. And just to wake you up and just to get some information back from the crowd, how many of you have tried to optimize their electricity usage or get a lower electricity bill in the couple of last years? Just raise your hands. Okay, so back there, it's a really simple electrical system of a household. All the electricity that we consume, we have to buy from the market. And if we want to optimize a bit of our usage, we just have to shift hours when we are going to use it. So we have even this online site called electrical.ee that shows you the current electricity price. Usually it says ikka väga kõrge, it's quite high. We can check it also what the current price is. Price is 13 cents, and it says it's high. Sorry. Yeah, full screen back. So additionally to this electricity price, we also have to take into account that we have to pay this transmission fee. And to optimize it, yeah, we can put the dishwasher to work at night. It suggests here, this green line, that you should use electricity after midnight. But often there are some scenarios where you can't use electricity at that time. For example, I have kids. When I go home after work, I need to make them food, so I need to consume this electricity, even if it's high-priced. So what should we do? Install solar panels. And solar panels seem like a perfect solution. On this graph here, this blue line is the consumption, and the yellow line is the solar production of solar panels, and the green line is all the household consumption that the solar panel covers. And everything that is excess, we can sell to the market. Another image. This is two types of Estonian households. On the left side here, those are households that have some sort of electrical heating or some sort of electrical heating. And on the right side, probably households that have central heating or wooden heating or something, because all the electricity consumption peaks that you can see here correlate really nicely to temperature. So the colder it gets, the more electricity you use. And if we look in a really, really small time scale now, 21 and 22, the solar electricity production has grown. In this year, I didn't put the numbers here, but I would say it's approximately 10% of the overall production. So quite a lot of solar panels. And these above plots show that Estonian households or consumers behave pretty similarly. So if we have a lot of solar panels at our small electric system, all those solar panels produce electricity at the same time. So what that means is that selling to the grid gets more and more complicated because the price goes down. It can also go to negative, so you're selling electricity and you have to actually pay for selling it, or you just have to curtail the solar production, and that's a problem. And in literature, it's called also a duck curve, that the consumption peaks and the production peaks don't overlap. So we have a small problem. So what would be the solution? For me, at least, it seems quite like easy and logical. We take some of the excess production that we have from solar power plants and move it to this consumption part. And what does it? Yes, it's batteries. So the next step of our electrical system is we also might have a battery there that smoothens out or buffers the consumption peaks. So, going on. Soon, it will be 2035, and the European Union or European Committee decided that there will be no new cars that use fossil fuels. So there will be a lot of home chargers, and it would be nice or useful also to optimize this charging for those cars. So the last small electrical system that we have also contains an electric car or electric vehicle. And we made a program, an algorithm that should minimize the cost of electricity for the end consumer. Also, we wanted that the battery usage will be also optimized because we have to take into account that charging a battery and discharging a battery isn't free. Every kilowatt has actually a price tag, and cycling a battery also degrades the battery's lifetime. And we wanted to optimize electric vehicle charging, and also we wanted to see how profitable each of those components in these electrical systems are. Small references for the logos and the plot. And now for the demo. Super nervous showing you the demo because showing live experiments always is a bad idea, but let's try it. So we built a small dashboard, and this dashboard should show all the necessary and important numbers. Also plots that you would like to see. So currently we are starting with only a house, like the first chart. We only buy electricity from the grid. And let's take for an example my grandmother's house, because I changed the electrical tariffs there, and so I know that my grandmother uses approximately 8,000 kilowatts yearly. We also have different predefined profiles. It's a house or a summer house, and you can also upload your own consumption patterns. You can download it from Elering's database. But let's see, 8,000 kilowatts per year. And we can see that we have total investment is 0, and we didn't save also anything, and we can see the monthly cost and monthly aggregated consumption. And this default profile is actually one of our colleagues' personal consumption pattern, and we can just scale it up or down depending how much electricity there's yearly. So, nothing special here. We didn't save anything. And let's add solar panels. To model or predict solar output, we need some data about the solar panels. Firstly, we need the location. And let's change it to Kuressaare, where my grandmother lives. And also we need technical specification of the solar panel. So what's the maximum production capacity? And I would say it's 5 kilowatts. And also to calculate the return of investment, we should add some price tag to this solar panel. And it's a completely random number from my head. It's 5,000 euros for 5 kilowatt PV station. And now let's calculate. So we invested 5,000 euros. We saved 900 approximately. And the return of investment will be somewhere around 5 years. Also, we plotted the solar panel production monthly aggregates and calculated the CO2 footprint. So let's continue. The third system, how to balance it out, is the battery. So let's add the battery here. And the data we need from the battery is basically we need to know about the capacity, charging speeds, how many cycles a battery has. Each producer, each manufacturer, each technology has its own limitation and technical specifications, but let's say that our battery is 5 kilowatts. It has a lifetime of 8,000 cycles, and the battery costs 5,000 euros. Through this cycle amount and the battery's cost, we can calculate the threshold, so we know when is it profitable or financially sane to use the battery. And let's calculate. So the battery in 1 year gives us additionally 190 euros savings, but you can see if we would have only a battery system, not the solar panel battery system, then the return of investment would be quite long, 42 years. And the battery gives us the possibility to buy and sell on the market. So, so we will charge the battery when the electricity is cheap or we have an excess production of solar power, and we will consume from the battery when the prices are high, or sell from the battery to the grid when the prices are high. And we have also this daily strategy. That's the interesting part, how we built or how this algorithm works. It's a recursive algorithm, and I wanted to title the talk how I actually used recursion in my daily work. But I will show you the plot or the plan. It's at first glance quite confusing. I'll remove this consumption and PV production, and the gray bars are the electricity prices on Nord Pool spot, and the purple line, it's the battery state of charge. If the arrow points up, then we are buying from the grid. So you can see that the electricity price is low, then we charge the battery, If the electricity price is high and the arrow points down, then we can sell from the battery to the grid. So let's add also this yellow line. Yellow line is the production of solar panels. And if you see those yellow lines, then the yellow lines mean that the battery is charged from the solar panels. And if we add the last line, it's consumption. If we see a blue arrow, it's the battery is being used for own consumption. And we can play around. For each day, it has this optimized strategy. And we have also this interesting plot here. Basically, we divided electricity consumption into production and consuming. And everything that's above is production, everything that is below is consumption, and the purple one is the battery. So we can see that the battery actually behaves, can behave as a consumer or a producer. And the last part, maybe I'm running out of time, is the electrical vehicle part. Basic thing there is that if you have an electric vehicle, you can define a time frame, and the algorithm will find the cheapest hours when to charge your car. Also, we have some advanced settings here that you can change the transmission fees or change the cost of charging from a public electric vehicle charger. So, demo didn't crash. I'm happy. Thank you, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you. I start because I'm interested too. So in principle, if you have an electric vehicle, you would want to charge during the day when you have the solar energy, right?
Yeah,
so they should be near the workplace, not at home.
Yeah, but yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
There,
but with the battery, you can reverse it, or but okay, then you have some cost in heat up of the battery. And
yeah, I guess it's off the topic, but I guess if you buy an electric car, then you have to change your mindset. Currently, like fossil-fueled cars, I drive until the light turns on that I have to tank. With an electric vehicle, every time you stop, you put it into the charger and hope it's full.
Okay, but let's take a few questions from the audience as well.
So the calculation was with a new battery or an old used battery?
New battery.
Okay, so
the calculations takes into account that you have this minimum discharging amount that you have to have something in the battery, and also that you can't, you don't have 100% of capacity, it's like 95, and that's where you have to define the battery specifications.
But using, for example, all EV batteries, so right now there is a big problem that we use EV cars, but after the EV car has lost some certain amount of battery, the battery has degraded, then we have a lot of batteries left over. So if you would make calculations with those, then...
Yeah, you just have to change the parameters, because there are several models that take into account also batteries degradation in time and the cycle. So basically you could use old batteries and run a model over it, so to get the exact capacity of your battery through every cycle that you have.
But if the battery is degraded like 50%, do you think that it's possible to still make money with that kind of battery?
Good question. I don't know currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the problem also is that you lose some energy when you charge.
Yeah.
Some of it goes into heat.
Yeah, there's
So
inverters
it's
and converters.
even more important than the capacity is the amount you lose. Well, yeah, one last quick question, please.
Yeah, not quick probably, but so let's say I'm working from home. I have solar panels, a house battery, and an electric car. Is there a solution out there that can optimize all of these? I think most of them say they optimize the battery and solar panels, but once you buy an electric car, you're kind of screwed because it doesn't work anymore.
I would say that this algorithm currently does most of it. So the optimization of solar production, you can't optimize it. It's how much sun we have, so much the solar panels produce, but the only thing or the current thing is that we optimize the algorithm so that the kilowatt hour is the cheapest for you. And we can take out the electric vehicle or take out the battery every time the algorithm finds out and returns the best or most profitable solution. But I have to say that
so it can choose whether to charge the car or the house battery during the day.
You mean okay.
Maybe we can take this offline because we're going over time. But yeah. Thank you. And a little gift from the institute. So while we switch again the source of the presentation, I will introduce the next presenter, who is actually the only presenter from our institute this time, Huber Flores, who is an associate professor in pervasive computation in our institute. So he's been with us for a long time. He did his master's and PhD here. We let him go to Finland for a little while, but we got him back. And now he's solving all the tasks related to computation in all the sensors that surround us, the millions of sensors. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so thanks for the nice presentation. So yes, I would be brief because, well, we want more food and we want more drinks, right? So then, yeah, I will start by saying that, yes, my name is Huber Flores. I'm associate professor here. Thank you very much. Me and my research group, we conduct research here about pervasive computing systems and distributed systems. So in this talk, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk to you about how a specific domain in computer science can help in environmental sustainability. And this domain is pervasive computing. Has anyone heard about pervasive computing by chance? Raise your hand. If not, okay, fine, everyone. So then I will just explain first what pervasive computing is. Sometimes people use synonyms, pervasive computing, ubiquitous computing, both kind of the same but slightly different. So then pervasive computing in simple words is just triggering computation in our surroundings. So basically when we are performing any action, there is something that is monitoring or capturing our actions, and then there is some proactive something that happens that based on what we did. And then there is a lot of wearable pervasive computing devices, personal devices that can actually capture all of this information, monitor all of this information, and those are the ones that we typically use for enabling pervasive computing. So this means that pervasive computing is omnipresent, can happen anywhere, of course. Me and my research group, we have developed new wearables, new applications. I just will talk briefly about them. So one is smart ring that we develop in the context of our group for basically detecting, monitoring whether drinks in social contexts are being hampered with drugs. So that, you know, like you are drinking something, someone puts something there, the ring can tell you. Another application is as well trying to, improve what we are seeing from our surroundings, basically trying to extend what the naked eye cannot see. So we have repurpose some sensors in smartphones so that by using thermal imaging, we can then look for instance, surveillance objects like cameras. So this is very handy because if you go abroad and then you have a Airbnb or something, and then you are worried that someone might be surveilling you or recording something about you, then this application can tell you, okay, this is a device right here hidden. This is a smoke detector. Another application as well is the use of autonomous drones. So we can basically embed autonomous drones with a lot of different sensors, and then we can do tasks at scale. So for instance, let's say in an open field, we have a lot of trees, we have a lot of vegetation. We can actually use nano drones for just estimating, for instance, the quality of fruits, how these are growing on, and what is the quality if there is some kind of diseases, bacteria infesting the crops. And lastly, we have some ongoing work in which we are embedding sensors in plants, and we are combining them with autonomous ground drones so that we can use this new technology to monitor productivity and improve productivity indoors. So that's what we are doing. So pervasive computing, it's about using all of these sensors and trying to do something about it. But nothing stops me, for instance, let's say if there were interfaces here, maybe Kinect interfaces, to disconnect interfaces to capture my gestures and then trigger some computation maybe in another city like Helsinki or Tallinn, but then that becomes more in the realm of ubiquitous computing, so that's the difference. But what about environmental sustainability? Because this talk is about green stuff, right? So what about environmental sustainability? Can pervasive computing actually help on this? So let's look a little bit about it. To understand this, we have to understand first that environmental pollution is a silent killer. So then air quality is detrimental to human life. So can cause pulmonary diseases, cancer, water quality as well, waste quality. Animals can eat this, can die, not just domestic ones, but wild ones as well. And one of the things of pollution is deadly, but what is more deadly is the incremental pollution over time because it's accumulative. It's nothing instantaneous that happens right away and everything is dead. So then there is progressive accumulation of pollutants in the environment. So we need to monitor those so that we can tell, shall we take some actions, some proactive actions to then overcome these problems. But then you say, oh, we are in Estonia. Actually, the ranking says that we have a really nice air quality here, and we don't need this stuff. We have abundant nature. Well, let's look at some latest news on environmental problems that Estonia have had. So, for instance, in Ida-Viru County, there is already people dying from lung cancer because we have industrial plants there next to residential places. So then it's a problem. In Pärnu, we have some aquatic environments which are already polluted. And in Jõgeva, there was a massive dead fish recently. And then if we could have had environmental indicators to know what is happening in the environment, we could have taken proactive action on it. Maybe save some lives potentially. If we want to monitor, if we want to get some environmental indicators, we need some environmental equipment. And typically how this is done currently is that we have stations and we have specialized equipment. So for instance, here you can see three types of equipment that they are used for environmental monitoring. The one that is just on the left, it's a water station that you deploy it there, and then you can monitor quality, water quality. In the middle, you have an air quality station. It's a little bit expensive because over €1. This is a picture from Helsinki, and there are like 12 there because they're very costly. And then if you want to look at what is the quality of the soil, then you need to use something like the spectrometer, which is also bulky and is very expensive. It's like €3,000 or something. So then, now imagine that we are in Tartu, and that, Tartu is proactively trying to, prolong the ecosystem's life for the future. And then government says, like, okay, let's let's monitor these areas. What shall we do? The logical next step is to deploy some of these stations, right? So then we identify the area that we want to protect, we deploy the stations, and problem solved, right? Actually, no, because these stations have a major problem, and the major problem is the spatial and temporal coverage, which means that it can just cover a certain area. So then, if you want indicators from whole the city, then you need actually stations to be deployed everywhere. And that becomes even a higher problem because then you need deployments in each site, you need space, you need people that is going to operate them, you need something to maintain these stations, and so on. So it becomes something which is really unfeasible. So it's a problem. So what we can do? Well, pervasive computing comes to the rescue. I hope so. And then, well, in pervasive computing, what we do is that we work with a lot of sensor data. And currently, there is a lot of low-cost sensors, so probably you have heard about this. There is a lot of different toolkits, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, that you can do rapid prototyping. And there is a large variety of different sensors. Whatever you can imagine, there is a sensor for. There is a lot of sensors, of course, but they can take samples, but it's about us to repurpose those sensors and to make them like fit certain type of application. Of course, certain sensors, they say like, okay, we are capturing a specific information, like the air quality, but actually you can repurpose them to do very interesting stuff. So the point here is that there are different sensors, we can repurpose them. So for instance, let's say here we have a door, and then we want to have an automatic door so that when people approaches to the door, it opens automatically, right? We can use different sensors for this task. So we can use a light reflection type of sensor so that when the person just, approaches, there is a light of beam there, and when the people just crosses, this beam just reflects back to the sensor, and voila, you open the door. We could use instead something like ultrasonic wave, which is kind of the same thing, but this is instead of a signal that just bounces back and forth. So when there is an obstruction in the line of sight of the sensor, then we can see that, well, we can open the door. Or we can use something like photoelectric type of sensor that just has some sort of like constant beam of electricity, so that when this is disrupted, then you know that you have to open the door. The problem with these sensors is that as they are just useful for taking coarse-grained decision. So for instance, like the door, open or close. But if we want to use these sensors for, let's say, environmental monitoring, then that's much, much complicated. So we can use pervasive data science methods to improve these sensors. And we do that by applying a bunch of different methods throughout the sensor collection until the end application. So imagine, for instance, this is an air quality sensor that was developed by some colleagues. And then this air quality sensor actually is not that big. You can put it or like carry it yourself. So imagine the possibilities of having this kind of sensor and then just giving it to people, and then maybe people can just put it in their backpack, and then people themselves can then take the measurements so that we can then obtain measurements about different areas in the city. So we are improving the coverage of the sensors. Or we can piggyback the micro vehicle infrastructure so that, for instance, scooters or bicycles, we can embed them with this type of sensors so that then we can augment as well the coverage. Or, more into the future, well, not in the future because we developed that autonomous drone actually, but the point is that we can use autonomous drones as well to make these tasks autonomous. So then if we have the drones, we can embed them with these sensors so that they would perform the monitoring instead. This drone is not for air quality, but it's for waste monitoring, but I will be discussing this one because this is one representative application that uses pervasive data science methods. So, what is pervasive data science? What wonders can do? Well, pervasive data science is just a bunch of approaches and methods that allow us to manipulate the sensor data from data collection to the end application itself. And in all of these stages, we do some improvements, enrichments to the data, optimizations, so that we can then use the data in very interesting applications. So by using these pervasive data science methods, now I will call them pipelines because these pipelines is a bunch of different methods. We have developed different types of applications. So we have developed an application that can be used, sensors that can be used, for instance, for detecting microplastics, which are in the ground in different urban areas. And this application uses light sensors actually to do that. And we also have used thermal imaging, which is just light in the visible spectrum, to look at the properties of different objects so that we can recognize them, classify them, and potentially separate them. So then you can see here, this is the autonomous drone that actually has this waste monitoring pipeline, and then I will be talking a little bit more about this. This is kind of a very eco-friendly solution, I would say, because first of all, the drone splits the load of sensing. What does that mean? Part of the sensing comes actually from the sun. So the idea is that, for instance, in urban areas where you have litter, and then the litter is being exposed to sun, the litter gets heat up, and then these drones here with this, well, can be thermal camera or can be a thermal array, just approaches to the litter with this nice shield. And then by putting this shield on top, then we can trigger one natural effect, which is just thermal equilibrium. And with this thermal equilibrium, through the sensor, we can then look at the properties of the object, and then we can tell what kind of object it is. So it's very cool. So how this application was developed? Well, first of all, we need a sensor. So typically, if I talk in terms of camera, it's easier to understand, but then basically this is a thermal array that overlaps the camera. So when you have a thermal phone, there is a thermal array which is just overlapping the heat information. Okay, so then you have the physical sensor. And then you need to look at what is the context, right? In this context, I already described how this drone is operating in urban areas. So then the litter, and then the things approach to the litter. Then this is what the drone will look like. Of course, we can understand here because, we can see the objects, but then basically the drone just see heat and then see different types of heat. So then we need first to extract this information from these thermal images, which typically contains matrix information, so that we can then process them, understand them, and put them in a representation that the computer can then understand. Because in pervasive computing, most of the devices that are processing this information are constrained, meaning that has low resources. Then we also need to optimize for that. In this case, doing the processing over thermal images is rather resource intensive, consumes a lot of power. So what we can do instead is we can transform to other representation. Here we just apply grayscale so that we can convert this. You can see here the thermal dissipation, which is just the effect of taking the object from one temperature to another, right? And then the object absorbing, adapting to that new environment. Then with that information, we can create dissipation vectors. And with these dissipation vectors, if we know the dissipation vector of a particular object, we can have multiple dissipation vectors. And with those, we can then train machine learning models. But then, of course, it's a little bit more complicated because the dissipation vectors are quite long. So then we need to apply extra methods, like, for instance, sparse coding and compressive sensing, so that we can make it also, low resource intensive. But then once we have that, we can then train the models, and then we can deploy them in the end application. So you see, it's a kind of a lot of different steps. It's not just taking the data from the sensor, but it's actually doing a lot of different things on it. So this, what is the point of this? The point of this is that there are different challenges in each of the stages. So then, for instance, in the pipeline that we see here, we have different phases. In each of the phases, we have challenges. For instance, in the case of the physical sensor, we have the angle, the position, the deployment, the line of sight, obstruction, and so on. In terms of the cleaning and processing, well, there is a lot of different things that we can do here. As I mentioned before, we optimize for these things to be operated or computed by low power and low constrained resources. So then we have to do a lot of optimizations here. Then we have, of course, the features of representation for models. And now, because all of the GDPR and US IA Act, we need to have also representations in this data so that we can then extract explanations to users. So it's something now that we also have to consider. And then the design, how this sensor is going to be integrated, what is the usability, the interactions, how it's going to meant to work. So then we have a lot of different things that we have to focus in order to actually enable this type of applications. But one of the main things, of course, is that if we can obtain the most accurate information, we will solve a lot of the problems. So then there is a lot of work regarding improving the measurements that we take from this type of sensors. So this is the thermal array. And just for you to understand how bad is this thermal array, in a thermal camera, I want you to understand this little experiment a little bit. So we have a wall, and we put a black surface on it. And then we pointed the thermal camera towards the surface, and then we, monitor what the thermal camera was looking at. The ambient temperature was around like 23 constant because it was an indoor office. And then you can see here the result. So the result is about 2 minutes of data collected, and then you can see that at the beginning we have 22 degrees, but then as the time goes by, then you can see that the measurements drifts, very badly. So then we have estimations from 22 to 28. So then that's a lot of drifts if we want actually to have something reliable and accurate. So then we need to solve this before we can actually use in reliable applications. To solve this problem, my team, developed a deep learning model. I'm not going to go into the details. If you want to ask about this, there's a paper, or I can explain you later. But then the point is that we look at some relations between what is causing the problem in the sensor. And we noticed that when the sensor was activated, there was a lot of processing going on in the CPU. And at the same time, the battery in which the device was heating up was getting hot. So then we captured this relation in this deep learning model, so that when this deep learning model was installed as a process in the device, then when it was detecting this augmentation in battery and processing, then it triggered the compensation for the camera so that the camera gets calibrated. So then you can see here the results. So then we have the ground truth, which is the reference point baseline. And then we see here how the compensation does when compared with that decalibration. And then you can see that is better. Of course, it's not the best, but it's better. So then that solves some of the problems there. So what's the point of this? Now, if we can then repurpose all of these low-cost sensors and have them in a way that they are useful and that we can use them for environmental monitoring, then we can embed them in different places, like, for instance, drones, micro vehicles, transport, and then all of these instruments, all of this equipment can be used or become the way in which we can then capture all these environmental indicators at scale. So in summary, low-cost sensors can augment the spatial and temporal resolution of data, but we need to apply this pervasive data science method, so these pipelines. There are several challenges throughout of the sensing pipelines, and then I present you here one calibration model that actually can help in improving the measurements that physical sensors can collect. And then some shameful advertisement. So then if you are interested in data science and, you are using this information to create machine learning models, then you might be interested in trustworthy AI, which is just how you can use AI in production. Then we have two courses that we developed with MinaLearn. They are the developers of Elements of AI, which has over 1 million subscribers. And now Tartu, TU UCD, and Erasmus has partnered in a context of EU project to develop these courses. Not the courses, but we did this with the research. But then you can take it, and you might get certificate, and you can get two ECTs for this kind of stuff. So it's worth it. So take it, please. Okay, so any questions?
Thank you, and definitely take the courses and learn. Learning is good. But yeah, we'll take two quick questions from the audience, because then we have some time for networking as well.
So I understand the benefit of pervasive computation is that you can really be on the spot. The challenge is that you need many sensors if you want to achieve that. Now, thinking about sustainability and pollution, we have pollution because we consume a lot. We consume too much.
Mm-hmm.
So looping back with the need to have many sensors to achieve one goal, do you have thoughts on how you can make sure that by putting all these additional sensors and trying to measure something, your benefits that you gain from being able to measure what you measure is outperforming the cost of producing all this and the associated pollution that is linked to it?
Yeah, well, this it's an answer that it's a little bit complicated, because first of all, it's not just about deploying the sensor. It has to be, you have to think, where are you going to deploy it, and how are you going to make sure that the measurements actually represent the reality, right? But then talking about opportunities, for instance, there is a lot of opportunities going on, especially with, like I mentioned a couple of times, micromobility, embedding the sensors in this micromobility infrastructure, so then you are not altering anything from current human behavior, so that you can piggyback actually from normal behavior or normal activities this kind of information. So one of the things of pervasive computing is that when you trigger computation, it's even you don't realize to it. It has to be transparent, right? Does that answer your question?
I was more thinking of the ecological cost associated to it, that the impact on the society.
Well, yeah. But as I was saying, because I was also present in some of the presentations, it was very interesting to see that there is the lack of data, and there is this lack of data because of the resolution, right? And then, for instance, if you have a station in place, you can get a lot of data, but from some certain area. But if you have this kind of approaches, opportunistic approaches, you can get more data, and you will get as well data at different temporal level from the same place, from different times, more representative, and so on. And then you can even correlate with human behavior. So I think it's I see a lot of value on obtaining this data.
Second question, and then we are wrapping up. No more questions. It's okay. We can take it offline. We will have...
Yeah, everyone wants food. I also want food. So.
But thank you for the presentation.
Yeah,
a little gift. Yes, so now we have snacks and drinks, and time to ask more maybe secret questions or business business questions from each other, and make plans. But before we go, a very important piece of information. There will be a next data science seminar already in less than a month, on 28th of November, and it will be on the topic of smart cities. So sign up, find the event and sign up, please, and let's keep these seminars going.